Don't touch the first-class desserts. That's for real, crew, the senior flight attendant snapped, slamming the tray shut in Danielle's face. Laughter erupted in the galley. You hear that, Danielle? Another chimed in. Better stick to handing out pretzels. That's more your speed. A tall male attendant leaned closer, his smirk dripping with contempt. You'll never make it to lead crew. Not with that skin, not with that face. Management only keeps you around for quotas. Don't get too comfortable. Passengers turned their heads. Some smirked, others whispered. Most stayed silent. Danielle said nothing. She adjusted her scarf, lifted her chin, and walked away with quiet dignity. Because what they didn't know was this. By the very next day, the same colleagues who mocked her would be standing at attention, because Danielle Brooks wasn't just a flight attendant. She was about to become their new boss. What would you do if your own coworkers mocked you in front of passengers? If they told you that you'd never belong, simply because of your skin? Would you stay silent or rise and prove them wrong? Let us know in the comments. The terminal was crowded, the buzz of rolling suitcases echoing through the glass-walled gates. Flight 782 to London. Full, long haul, overnight. Danielle stood at the jet bridge, greeting passengers with a practiced smile. Welcome aboard. Seat 4A is just down this aisle. Good evening, sir. Enjoy your flight. Her voice was warm, steady, professional. But inside, she felt the tension already building. Her colleagues leaned against the wall, whispering behind their hands, laughing at private jokes. Bet she messes up service again, one muttered. She'll probably spill drinks before we're even in the air. Danielle ignored them. She had learned to. Years of whispers, side eyes, snickers. It was background noise now. But tonight, it stung more. Maybe because the plane was full. Maybe because every passenger's eyes felt like they were watching. Or maybe because, deep down, Danielle knew something her colleagues didn't. This would be the last time they'd ever mock her. As boarding wrapped up, a first-class passenger snapped his fingers. Excuse me, miss. Danielle turned, polite as ever. Yes, sir? The man glanced at her uniform, then at the others. Are you new? You don't look like first-class crew. Don't get me wrong, you're trying, but I'd prefer someone more experienced handling my dinner. His wife added, her voice dripping with condescension. No offense, dear, but first class is about standards, presentation, confidence. You understand, right? A couple of nearby passengers chuckled. Danielle kept her smile. Of course, ma'am. I'll make sure your needs are met. From the galley, the senior attendant whispered just loud enough. See? Even the passengers notice. Another round of laughter. Danielle's hands tightened around her service book, but she didn't break. She didn't snap back. She simply nodded, carried on with dignity, and moved down the aisle. Because while they mocked her, she was silently counting down the hours to tomorrow, when those same voices would choke on their words. Later, as the cabin lights dimmed for takeoff, Danielle stood by the galley window. The city lights below blurred into golden rivers as the plane lifted into the night sky. Behind her, her colleagues laughed again, their words sharp enough to cut. She's only here for diversity. She'll never last. Management doesn't actually trust her with anything important. Danielle closed her eyes. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her memory. Never let them tell you where you don't belong, and when they try, show them you belong more than anyone. She opened her eyes, calm, steady. Tomorrow, she thought. Tomorrow, everything changes. 2 hours into the flight, the cabin was calm. Passengers watched movies, sipped wine, or dozed beneath soft blankets. But in the galley, the mockery hadn't stopped. The senior attendant held up a crystal glass, swirling the wine dramatically. Careful, Danielle. Wouldn't want you dropping this on a first-class guest. Maybe stick to paper cups, The tall male attendant chuckled. She doesn't even look like first-class crew. Bet most passengers assume she's economy staff who wandered up here by mistake. The others burst out laughing. Danielle stood rigid, her tray in hand. Every insult chipped at her patience, but she refused to break. She'd been underestimated her whole life. Tonight was no different. Ding! A call light lit up in 3C. Danielle hurried to the seat. A middle-aged woman looked her up and down with visible disdain. Yes, miss. I asked for sparkling water. Not still. Do you even pay attention? I'm very sorry, ma'am. I'll correct that right away, Danielle replied softly. The woman turned to her husband, rolling her eyes. This is why service standards are slipping. They just hire anyone now. Her words weren't whispered. They were loud enough for half the cabin to hear. Danielle forced a professional smile, but her throat tightened. Behind her, she heard the snicker of one of her colleagues watching the scene unfold. Suddenly, a sharp cry cut through the cabin. Help! Somebody help! A man in seat 2. A clutched his chest, his face pale and contorted with pain. His wife screamed, He can't breathe! Please, do something! Passengers gasped, some leaping to their feet. Chaos rippled through the first-class cabin. The senior attendant froze, panic flashing across her face. The tall male attendant dropped the bottle he was carrying, hands trembling. For a terrifying moment, no one moved. No one, except Danielle. She rushed forward, kneeling beside the man. Her voice was calm, firm. Sir, can you hear me? Stay with me. We need space. Everyone, please step back. Her confidence cut through the chaos like a blade. Passengers instinctively obeyed. Danielle checked his pulse, her training kicking in. Weak, shallow. She looked up sharply. We need the emergency medical kit, now! The senior attendant just stood there frozen. I don't, Danielle snapped, her voice sharper than anyone had ever heard. Now! The cabin hushed. Even in crisis, the authority in her voice was undeniable. Another attendant scrambled to hand her the kit. Danielle tore it open, attaching the oxygen mask with swift precision. Sir, breathe, slow and steady. You're going to be all right. She guided his wife's trembling hands to hold the mask. Keep it here. Don't let go. Turning to the tall male attendant, she ordered, Alert the captain. Tell him we may need a diversion. For once, he didn't argue. He bolted. Passengers watched in awe as Danielle worked. The woman in 3C, the same one who had belittled her moments before, covered her mouth, shame flashing in her eyes. The senior attendant finally whispered, She actually knows what she's doing. A passenger near the front muttered, Of course she does. She's saving his life. Within minutes, the man's breathing steadied. His color returned, and the panic in the cabin began to ease. His wife clutched Danielle's hand, tears streaming down her face. Thank you. You saved him. Danielle smiled softly. It's my job, ma'am. But her colleagues knew the truth. They hadn't been capable of handling it. She had. And for the first time that night, their laughter was gone. As Danielle stood, a hush fell over the cabin. Passengers looked at her differently now, not as less, but as the woman who had stepped up when no one else could. She returned to the galley, her steps steady. Her colleagues stared, silent, their earlier smirks erased. Danielle didn't gloat. She didn't smirk back. She simply resumed her duties, calm and composed. But in her heart, she knew something they didn't. Tonight, she had proven her worth. Tomorrow, she would prove her power. Because in less than 24 hours, the same attendants who had mocked her would be forced to call her chief. Sunlight poured over the sleek glass windows of the airline's headquarters. The lobby bustled with uniformed crew checking schedules, sipping coffee, exchanging laughs. Among them were the very same attendants who had mocked Danielle just the night before. The senior attendant adjusted her scarf, yawning. That flight was a nightmare. If I hadn't been there, it would have been total chaos. The tall male attendant smirked. Danielle was lucky. Right place, right time. Management won't even notice. Please, another chimed in. They keep her for diversity points. Nothing more. Their laughter rang out in the lobby until a hush swept across the room. Heels clicked against the marble floor. Heads turned. Conversations died. Danielle Brooks walked in, but this time not in a flight attendant's uniform. She wore a tailored navy suit, gold insignia gleaming on her blazer. Her ID badge caught the light. Chief Flight Officer. Gas rippled through the lobby. The senior attendant's smile froze. Wait, what? The airline's CEO appeared behind Danielle, beaming. He clapped a hand on her shoulder. Everyone, may I have your attention? As of this morning, Danielle Brooks has been officially appointed Chief Flight Officer, responsible for overseeing all flight crews across our global operations. The lobby erupted in applause. Phones snapped photos. Crew members whispered in awe. The senior attendant's face drained of color. The tall male attendant muttered under his breath, "Impossible." But it was real. Danielle wasn't just another flight attendant. She was now their boss. After the announcement, Danielle turned to face the very colleagues who had mocked her. Her voice was steady, firm, but not cruel. Last night, I watched some of you laugh while a man's life hung in the balance. I listened as you mocked me in front of passengers, questioned my abilities, and belittled me for the color of my skin. They shifted uncomfortably. She continued, her eyes sharp. But when crisis struck, you froze. I didn't. I did my duty, and I saved a life. Not for applause, not for recognition, but because that's who I am. That's who I've always been. Silence hung heavy in the air. Crew members who hadn't been there looked shocked, those who had looked at the floor. Danielle took a step closer, her gaze piercing the senior attendant. You told me I didn't belong in first class, that I'd never be more than a quota. Well, look around. I don't just belong here. I lead here. The senior attendant swallowed hard, her voice trembling. I didn't mean... Yes, you did, Danielle cut in sharply. And let this be clear, prejudice has no place in this airline. Mock me, mock anyone again, and you won't just lose my respect. You'll lose your job. The room buzzed with murmurs. Crew members nodded, some clapped. The same woman who had belittled Danielle now stood small, her arrogance shattered. The tall male attendant whispered, Chief Brooks, as if the words tasted bitter in his mouth. Danielle straightened, her voice carrying to everyone in the room. I am not here for revenge. I am here to raise the standards, to ensure that every passenger, every colleague, every single person, regardless of race, gender, or background, is treated with dignity. If you can't meet that standard, you won't last under my command. Applause thundered. Some crew members cheered. Others wiped their eyes. Danielle exhaled slowly, allowing herself a rare smile. For the first time, she wasn't just surviving in the sky. She was rewriting it. Later that week, a photo went viral. Danielle, standing tall in her navy suit, surrounded by cheering crew. The caption read, From ridiculed to respected, Danielle Brooks, the flight attendant who became chief. Passengers from that infamous flight left comments online. She saved my husband's life. The most professional crew member I've ever seen. We need more leaders like her. The same world that once underestimated her now celebrated her. Danielle sat in her new office overlooking the runway, planes soaring into the clouds. She whispered to herself, They told me I didn't belong, but I was born to fly higher than they could ever imagine. They mocked her. They humiliated her. They told her she didn't belong. But when the moment came, Danielle Brooks didn't just rise above their hate, she saved a life, shattered their prejudice, and returned the very next day as their boss. That is the power of dignity. That is the power of resilience. That is the power of knowing your worth. Now I ask you, what would you do if people told you that you didn't belong? Would you let them define you, or would you prove them wrong, just like Danielle did? Comment below. I want to hear your story. Because these are not just stories, these are lessons. Stories of injustice, of struggle, of pride, and of victory. If you believe voices like Danielle's deserve to be heard, hit subscribe, because we're just getting started.